Hey there, Phoenixes. Oh, this is Heather Day of Phoenix Rising. Release your Phoenix. I hadn't been called recently to really share on a podcast. There's been a lot going on energetically this time of year, and there also has been a lot of shifting for me when it comes to just my growth. I think I may have mentioned in the last podcast, and I mentioned on a little video on my Facebook and Instagram that I've just begun a womb priestess mentorship, and that's going to deepen my experience and my journey, as well as preparing me for some new tools to offer those that I work with. So it's very exciting for me. It's something that, excuse me, my voice it's a little scratchy or something this morning. But it's something that is very, oh, I just realized what this is. I'll tell you in a second. But it's something that's really, really, it's not even deep in my heart, it's deep in my womb to pursue. I've done some womb awakening ceremonies with this woman that I'm mentoring with, and she's absolutely just incredible, beautiful soul, just a goddess. And I'm very excited to be working with her and just be in a mentorship under her. So today I wanted to get on for a couple of things. One, there's a story and just some information that I wanted to share about women, the way that our men often feel in relationships because of the ways that we show up, and kind of some of the things that I've realized in working through that, and also my experience with the Mercury retrogrades. Which there's just so much. I didn't even used to pay attention to it because I was just like, I don't know about all that stuff. I don't know. Yeah. So the first thing that I'll share is, I drive for Uber for fun on the weekends, for some extra money, to meet new people, free marketing, learning the city. Just it's a really wonderful fit for me. And it's a great way for me to get out and just meet new people, and I love it so much. And a few weeks ago, I had this gentleman get in the car. He was about 70 years old. And I asked him, how he was doing, what he had going on. And he said that he had just visited his wife. And there was just this energy about him. He was just not particularly happy. Not really angry or upset, just not particularly happy. And he said, I just feel like I can't do anything right. And, so many people feel that way, particularly in relationships. I know I felt that way. I know my ex-husband felt that way in our marriage. And I know that I've made other men feel that way. And I realized that it's because women don't know how to state, not all of us, of course, but in general, a lot of us don't know how to state our desires in a way that is not criticizing. I know for me, particularly, I had a role model who was incredibly criticizing to my father. And so that didn't help. But I think this stems from, I've experienced, and part of my womb experiences and my womb awakening, and I've mentioned this before, that the feminine can feel frustrated by the masculine. by the masculine collapsing in on itself, by it not serving the feminine, protecting, providing. And we don't know how to we don't put words to this. We don't realize that this is what we're feeling. We just know that they're not doing what we feel that they're supposed to be doing. We feel unfulfilled. And we don't know how to fix it oftentimes. If our men are feeling like they can't do anything right, then we are handling this wrong. And it came to me, all of these shifts come so rapidly, and it happens, it deepens over a period of time. So I can't remember when this first came to me. It was several months ago, but I realized, and I think I mentioned in one of my podcasts, that I was reflecting all of the things. I was pointing out and focusing on all of the things that I didn't like in my relationships in a critical manner. And that really what we need to be doing is reflecting the best of what we're given, reflecting and focusing on the best of what we receive, because the masculine is here to serve us, and they do desire to serve and make us happy. Of course, nobody can make you happy. You have to find that in yourself. But the masculine is here in order to, they desire us to be happy. They just want to see us smile. They will do anything if we let them know what it is that we want. Stop telling them what you don't want. We have to stop telling them what we don't want. We have to stop focusing on all of the things that they're doing that we don't like, and really start appreciating deeply the ways that they show up when they are showing up properly, recognizing that when they are showing up in the ways that we desire. And we really, really, really need to figure out the art of speaking our truth without blaming, without shaming. And here's the thing. I believe that we don't know how to do this because we've been in a masculine-led society. And when I was discussing this with this gentleman, he was telling me that his wife, she worked under, I can't remember exactly who it was, Perot. She worked under Perot. She worked directly under Perot, and who died fairly recently, in the past year. And he said, I blame him. They had known each other since like second grade, but when she started working for this man, things changed. And it's because the environment that they were in 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when she was working for this man, was so masculine led. She was in a man's world, and he groomed her, and he was a tough, hard man when it came to no nonsense, and she became this way. And when we hand, as women, as the feminine energy, when we hand that power over to the masculine and we seek to retain power the way that the masculine does, not only does it repel our men, because two positive energies or two negative energies are automatically repellent, but oh goodness, it doesn't work nearly as well as our power does, even in the men's world. We just don't know what our power is. And we don't know how to harness it. We don't know how to express it. We don't know how to, and here's the thing is, this is our truth. If we once we learn to honor ourselves and speak our truth from a balanced and healed space, and nobody's completely healed, nobody's completely balanced, but once we stop looking at all of your shit and making it mine, and stop projecting all of our shit onto other people, and simply honor and speak our truth in a way that is not blaming, shaming, or becoming the victim, that simply states our desires, it changes the game. And that is something that I have really been working through. And what I've realized is as we move through these processes, and I've mentioned before that I've noticed that I will swing through extremes. I'll be over here on one extreme experiencing something, and then as I start to work through that shadow work and start to dive into that, see what's underneath that, heal those things, bring that into balance, sometimes I'll swing to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Oftentimes I will. And I've discussed with others who've recognized this as well. And I believe that that's because we have to explore both extremes in order to see where the balance is very often. Sometimes we can swing right into the balance. Sometimes we have had a good example of that, or, you know, and we're able to do that. But, you know, I went from being incredibly bitchy in my younger years in relationships and not caring who I offended, and also being very, just not having any respect for the masculine because of the ways that it had oppressed me, because of the ways that it had exploited me, just specifically in my little world growing up, and because of the ways that it had not served me. I was very frustrated. I felt fear from it. Therefore, I had defenses and I had anger. And so when a man would come to me and he was not what I wanted, I was like, you've got to be joking me. I was perfectly fine being that bitch and saying, I don't know who the fuck you think you are. And I didn't care if it hurt their feelings. I didn't care if it was being bitchy, because I wasn't going to put up with that. And I was going to protect myself. And as I started to do the healing, I realized that there was such a level of disrespect there. And then I ended up swinging to the other end of the spectrum and really allowing men to show up in ways that were not okay. I mean, never have I been in a relationship where a man was abusive, but maybe I didn't feel like being intimate, or maybe I wasn't quite ready to be intimate. But I either did not recognize that because I was not in touch with myself and did not have enough value for myself and my feelings to recognize that. Or even if I did notice that, you know what, I'm kind of not feeling this, I wouldn't speak up. I wouldn't say anything. And I kind of had this feeling of, oh, well, maybe I kind of led it to this point, or, oh, maybe I kind of owe it at this point. We have a precedent, or, you know, they're just, you know, these different things that we sometimes feel, not specifically in those, we don't really necessarily think it in those terms, but we kind of have this feeling. And, you know, over the past 2 years, and I mentioned this a little bit in my Instagram, I've had a relationship from the time that my divorce ended, actually. There's been a man that was there in some capacity. And we dated on and off a little bit, but he has always been there in some capacity over the last 2 years. And I was really able to explore all of this with him in such a beautiful way. Never once did he have any complaints about the ways that I was showing up at all. He simply, he honored himself so well. He honored his boundaries so well. And was such a beautiful example for that. And he also was just a beautiful, pure mirror. The interesting thing is, this man he's not conscious of any of this work. He's not really doing a ton of self-work. He does do some reading. He has dove in a little bit to some self-work on some areas where he's had some imbalances. But the interesting thing is, he has incredibly beautifully balanced masculine energy, which I actually recognized from the beginning before I even really dove into this work or really knew about my feminine energy at all. He really has been here on this journey with me really from the beginning, and has seen all of these shifts, and really in so many ways has facilitated so many of these shifts. And I realized that I very recently realized that he very much initiated me into my feminine energy and power simply by being who he was, never with any words, which was a very beautiful example to me of the way that the feminine can lead so powerfully. Because that was his feminine energy, where he was just showing up and just being that reflector, just holding that space, because he really didn't hold the guardian protector space for me, really, ever. He really never showed up and provided for me or served the feminine really in any way, but he had beautiful masculine energy in a lot of other areas. But the reason the relationship never developed is because that deep connection between the masculine and feminine, there was a ton of chemistry, always a ton of chemistry, and always an attraction, but he never showed up in the relationship in that masculine form for my feminine, to hold that space for my feminine to really blossom into, from that masculine space, from that guardian protector space that really brings two people together deeply in a relationship. So, but he showed me such a beautiful example of exactly what it was that I'm looking to do in guiding others without being critical. Because he was never critical, ever. He only reflected the best of what he ever saw in me. He was very happy with all of it. And he responded in pure reflection of exactly the ways that I was honoring myself. So if I wasn't speaking my truth about what I wanted for my body, well, he was pushing that boundary because he didn't know what I wanted. He was doing what he thought that I wanted. Or if I didn't speak my truth about how I wanted him to be showing up for this relationship, and I was okay with him doing less, he was doing less. He literally was just showing up in exactly the ways that I allowed him to. And what I realized was that, specifically with him, he is the man that I healed and worked through my issues with the masculine with, because I didn't honor my body. I wasn't honoring myself. I wasn't honoring my value, my worth. I wasn't speaking my truth in those areas with his strong masculine energy. I was molested, and I think I mentioned this in one of my previous, very first podcasts. I was molested by my father from the time that I was a very young baby until I was 12 years old. He would view it as something different, which is perfectly fine. All that matters is what my experience was with it and the wounds that I carried because of that. He also would kind of parade me around in short little shorts, and, all of his buddies were, oh, she's going to be a little heartbreaker. She's so beautiful. She's so this, she's so that. But they really kind of exploited that beauty in a way that was not valuing it. And so I had both of those things coming from my father. And so when it came to driving Uber, and I would have an older man in the car, and he would say things that were a little out of line, not necessarily rude, but just disrespectful, I would laugh it off. I didn't know how to speak my truth. I didn't know what to say. And I always just laughed off things that I didn't like. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to speak my truth without being a bitch. I didn't want to be a bitch, right? I had already gone through that extreme of being the bitch. I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I ended up being silenced when there was an older man, like a father figure, or when there was a man with a strong masculine presence, like this man who had been in my life for the past 2 years. And so the very first way that he really started to heal that was by showing up in those ways that gently pressed those boundaries. But it was such a gentle process. This entire thing with him was so beautiful and so gentle. There were never any explosions, never any blowups, never any fights, never any really hurt feelings, never any heartbreak. It was just gently, just showing up, gently reflecting that for me so that I could feel into it and really start to find my voice in it. And more recently, I recognized that, he really started showing up in some new ways and really actually started drawing me um, in a more emotional capacity within the past like 4, 5, 6 months. So, a year and a half into the relationship, he's actually showing up in a way now that's drawing me in more deeply. And I realized, though, that I was still allowing him to really put in very minimal effort. I was actually responding to very minimal effort. And that new way of showing up, combined with, he had started to do a little bit of self-work. He had made some shifts and some things that were preventing deeper emotional connections between us. He really started showing up and making an effort. Not a large effort, but he was certainly making an effort. And to be fair, he does have a lot going on with his business, and that was always something that he was like, I don't think I have time for a relationship, and I accepted that. Even though we weren't really in a relationship, like I said, we were kind of dating back and forth. There wasn't this deep connection thing, but I was allowing this man to hold emotional space from me, and I was giving this energy to this relationship where he wasn't showing up the way that I deserve, the way that any woman deserves for the masculine to really show up. This, by the way, I always get this clearing of, I always get this gunk that's coming through my throat chakra after I've spoken my truth, when I'm really moving through into a new level of speaking my truth. And that's why I felt called to share all of this really, personal part of my experience, of my journey, because I just stepped through another gateway of that. And last night, which is why this is this morning now doing this. But I realized that, okay, I healed that where I kind of collapsed back into my little girl with the masculine energy. I'm no longer doing that. But I'm also not honoring myself and speaking my truth and the things that I do desire, and in the ways that I do desire the masculine to show up. I also realized that despite the fact that our relationship really never went to a deep level in the masculine feminine connected form, and it didn't develop the way that it traditionally has in my relationships, I realized that there were certainly aspects of this man that I had begun to fall for. And, because of the value that he had in the ways that he's just the beautiful reflection that he had, the way that we work together, that I've grown so much as a direct result of our interaction, is so incredibly priceless, of course. And because he is so balanced in a lot of ways, in the ways that he does show up, and he is healed in so many ways that I haven't found in others. Like I said, I'm out meeting a lot of people all the time. I've been open to dating this entire time, and I've had other relationships throughout these 2 years. I've gone on dates even recently, and there are so many people who are so incredibly wounded, which is fine. We all come from these wounded places, and there's nobody out there that's not wounded, including me. There's nobody out there that's done with this journey. This journey's never done. All you can do is go deeper and deeper into it. But what I've found is that the more that I've healed, well, I'm not going to tolerate being with somebody who's jealous or insecure or, has these issues with the wounded feminine, when I'm no longer that wounded feminine, in many of those ways. When I've come into a more balanced space, I desire a more balanced man, and I haven't seen a lot of that. And because he was one that I had really seen in that, it's something that I really stuck with, or that really stuck with me. More like I didn't really stick with it. I kept pulling away because it was just never what I desired. But the interesting thing is, in the beginning, when I was pulling away, I was focusing on him and the things he was doing. I was telling him, I don't like that you're doing this. I want to be this. I'm going to be over here because I don't like what you're doing. So you can do what you want. I'm going to be over here. And trying to respect that he can do what he wants and trying not to take it onto myself, but still very much blaming, still coming from a space of the critical. And more recently, I came from my truth and I said, I understood and I recognized that the ways that he's showing up wasn't to hurt me. It wasn't on purpose. He's simply just doing what he's doing based on what he has going on in his life and the fact that I'm still around when he's doing this. So he's, obviously it's okay. I'm condoning it. I'm okay with it, right? So if he can put less effort in, he is. And I had read somewhere that the feminine really actually initiates the masculine in the ways that they allow the masculine to show up. The masculine tends to be this energy oftentimes that's kind of, that little boyish energy where they just kind of screw around sometimes and kind of, but the feminine energy doesn't allow them to do that. The masculine really loves and reveres the feminine energy for its sovereignty and for making it want to be better. I've had that reflected to me a lot in relationships, but didn't really see it until now. And I didn't know how to evoke that. I didn't know how I ever did evoke it, and I certainly didn't know how to evoke it now. And here's the thing. If you're trying to evoke anything from anyone, it's manipulative. If you're trying to evoke emotion, if you're trying to keep them around, if you're trying to push them away so that they'll want to come back, if you're trying to point out something that they're doing in order to get them to change it, all of these things are things that I think most women go through in trying to figure out how the fuck to communicate what we want to men. And that's part of the imbalanced feminine energy, which shows up as manipulation. And it doesn't have to be so deep as to, I'm going to consciously use my power in a sexual way, because I never did that. So I never saw myself as a manipulative person, but simply because I didn't know how to communicate my needs to a man, I was showing up in manipulative ways because I didn't know how to honor myself and speak my truth. And so, this time when I showed up, and it's been a path toward this of me stepping more and more into this, which he's recognized. He's recognized and commented on. But this time I asked to see him and I told him that I had something really vulnerable to share with him. I wanted it to be in person. And I let him know that I had started falling for the ways that he had shown up in the past, these different ways that he has shown up for me, that he has held this space for me over the years. It's really just gained value and it really has started to win my heart over. And he's made it very clear that he is not in a position in his life right now where he is ready to prioritize a relationship. And that's fine. I honor that in him. I'm not blaming him. I'm not asking him to show up differently. But I can't do this. I can't engage in this on any level anymore, even as a friendship, because I'm realizing that I started to fall for these areas. The second that I realize that, I know that I'm going to see them more and more, and that there's definitely a chance that just based on that, I may start to gain deeper feelings because of this recognition now. And I would end up gaining deeper feelings for somebody who has made it very clear to me that they're not there in that capacity. They're not showing up in that capacity. And that I'm not going to do that. I love myself and honor myself too much to engage in that and to accept that. So, and here's the interesting thing, and here is where the Mercury retrograde experience comes in, particularly with this person and in other areas of my life as well. I'll share a couple of other areas as well. So like I said, I wasn't really sure about the Mercury retrograde stuff, the planetary stuff, and this one's and that one, and this one's coming in. And I still don't really know anything about that stuff. What I do know is that I start experiencing things around these times of years when this stuff is happening. And I've become more aware of it. And so many times I've started to feel these things, and then I'm like, oh, this person's having a similar experience. Wow, that person's having a similar experience. And then something will come into my, either across my news feed or whatever, with a, hey, here's the energy of this thing. And holy shit, I'm like, that's exactly what we're experiencing. The first few times that happened, I was like, oh man, maybe there is something to this. Because at first I was like, oh, that doesn't affect me. I don't want to even read that negative because this isn't affecting me in that way. And then I started to realize, actually it is, and that denying it actually isn't making it not so. So as I started to realize this around this time last year, I had some huge transitions going on. Around this time last year, I was getting evicted from my apartment. My car had gotten repossessed, which I actually had let it go because I couldn't afford it. And I had made some decisions in my life about how I was going to earn money. I was not going to allow money to dictate what I did to earn it, the need for money to dictate what I did to earn it. I wasn't going to go back to work a 9-to-5 and take time away from my children in order to make income. I was going to pursue my passions. The problem is I was also in a space a year ago where I didn't know what that looked like. I knew I would be helping others in some capacity. I knew it would probably involve healing in some way, but I didn't know if that was going to be nutrition, homeopathy. I did not feel super guided to, I have those things in my life with my family. I did not feel guided to pursue that for others in a deep way. I help others with acutes and things like that. I'll help them find remedies. I will help them with their nutrition to help balance their body, but I did not desire to go into that to make money, and to do that at a large scale. But I knew that it was going to involve something with that, right? In the meantime, I am having so many things stripped away from me. A relationship that went incredibly deep, incredibly quickly, really powerful, beautiful masculine energy, wounded masculine energy, but beautiful energy. And also reflected a lot of my wounded feminine energy, but in a way that I couldn't see it. And that relationship fell away. My apartment fell away. My job, literally all of my possessions now fit into the back of a Prius. So as I came out of that, things kind of settled, not in the most ideal of ways, but they settled in a way that has allowed me to facilitate more growth in a deeper journey of myself to really find the ways that I'm going to be showing up for others. So over the past year, I've found now through my journey with myself, the things that I really feel drawn to heal in others. And, clarity on the fact that it's the wounds that I see, that it's the masculine, feminine energy and the interactions between that I'm able to see, that it's the ability to see and experience these things and then put them into words for others at a cognitive level so that they can be understood, that, the ability to feel, manipulate energy and use that for healing. All of these things have become very clear to me over the past year. And with this relationship with this man, again, I had been in other relationships, but this person was still there in a friendship capacity. And here's the interesting thing. Whenever I was in a relationship, I would never spend time with this man because there was a lot of chemistry there. So as soon as a relationship that I was in became a more committed relationship and we were more than dating, I wouldn't see this man anymore because there was a ton of chemistry here. It was so magnetic that I would not have been able to, it would not have been fair. I could not maintain a physical relationship in any capacity with this man if I was involved with another man. And I kept trying to cut it off. A Mercury retrograde would come through. Last year, I knew Mercury retrograde. Okay, shedding shit. Fine. Okay, I'm going to step into that and I'm going to let this connection go too. I do Kundalini often, and it works with dissolving connections. And every single time I would expect this connection to dissolve. And the interesting thing was the other connections that I had ended up dissolving completely unexpectedly instead. And this one remained. And recently actually, this is kind of funny. Like they have these things online where you can do like little click tarot cards. And I was like, I don't know about this. This is just weird. And, but I did it because I was just curious, like, what is going to come up here? And I did it specifically on my love life. And, because the only person, I'm out here all the time. I go out by myself all the time doing things that I enjoy. I am out driving Uber all the time, talking, having amazing conversations with men, women, everything, everywhere. And, going on dates and just not finding anybody that resonates with me that I want to take things any further with, except this man. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I did know deep down, I did know that there's something else in this relationship for me. I've known that for the past probably year and a half, that there's growth here for me. If it's not going away, there must be something else here for me. And when I pulled those tarot cards here, maybe, I don't know, a month or two ago, I got the message that, and I didn't know if it was true or not. I did sense that there was some more to myself that I needed to explore in honoring and speaking my truth. I didn't know exactly what that was at the time. But it's one of the tarot cards said that I had a life lesson that needed to be learned before, my kind of forever relationship would be coming to me. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. I don't really know, but fine. And it's interesting because for the first time now, after stepping through this last kind of portal in this relationship with this man, I now am in a position where not only do I feel that I actually have a good grasp and understanding of my feminine energy, of how that interacts with the masculine energy, of how to communicate with the masculine energy, of how to honor myself and speak my truth. For the first time, I feel like I actually know how to show up in a healthy way in a relationship, to interact in a healthy way, that my feminine is healed enough and balanced enough to interact with a balanced and healed masculine energy. Again, this is, to the capacity that we're at, because you can always go deeper. But the big shit's kind of been figured out, I feel like. And I really actually feel that I'm in a space where I'm ready to, I've figured out enough of my own shit to be able to bring somebody else into this, to dive deeper with them. And who that is, I don't know, obviously. But it's the first time I've felt that way. Prior to this, I've always felt this, like I wasn't sure how to do this properly without chasing them away, or without, I didn't know. And I very much feel like I have a handle on that now. Like I have an understanding that really this whole thing, it's all just about honoring ourselves and speaking our truth and just reflecting the best of what we see. That's the best thing that you can do in a relationship. That's the, we tend to project and take so many things on. We make so many things about us that are not about us, and we project so many things of ours onto the other person. So it's really about coming to a space of understanding when you're triggered, of getting quiet, going inward instead of outward, and really just learning how to speak your truth and honor your truth. And being vulnerable. And it's so funny because I knew those words and I knew those statements before, but I didn't know how to do it. And it's just been a process of learning how to do it. And there's not anything that I did to learn how to do it. I just explored within myself. I would just get quiet and process until I found a way of showing up that felt the most authentic. And that continued to be more and more vulnerable, more and more simply stated, more and more just right to the truth of what the matter was as I've moved through that process. And so now that I've had that conversation last night, see, my throat chakra is clearing up now because I'm like I'm like stating all of this, clearing all of this energy out now. And, last night, now I've had this conversation with this man. And again, even this, like every time I've pulled away, even, it's been this beautiful thing, this very respectful, beautiful thing. And so he said, okay. And I could tell that there was a little bit of sadness there. I mean, it's been 2 years that we've been there in some capacity for each other. And I mean, there has been a lot of growth and realization on his side from me as well. And so there was some sadness there, but it feels right. And it feels right now for me to let this go if he doesn't show up differently. Like it literally is, I'm open to him showing up differently, but I'm done. Like I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. This relationship is not what I want. It's not what I desire. I know that he has the capacity to show up the way that I desire. Whether or not he chooses to do that is completely his choice. I'm not going to state that to him. I'm not going to present that to him. I literally just said, I'm falling for you. I know that you're not ready for this, so I can't do this because I'm going to end up getting hurt. That's it. So, there's that Mercury retrograde relationship kind of, it's in a transition. Everything right now is so everything with the energy right now is transition and stepping into new identity. And so like transformation and new identity. And so I very much feel in my own life, I'm stepping into, just in myself, I'm stepping into a new identity as the goddess that I am, honoring myself, speaking my truth in a loving way, holding that space in a loving way, that holding the space for myself and others. Because I had begun to hold space for others and not honor myself, not hold the space for myself. So I feel like I'm stepping into a new identity that way. I also feel like I'm stepping into a new identity. I know that over this next year, it's going to be stepping into a new identity with my relationship with money and my the way that I'm showing up with others in a healing capacity, and just really stepping into that identity. I know and I feel that is a really large source of the identity shift that is coming. I also once again am moving into a space where my living situation is shifting. And once again, I'm being presented with the choices and options of what to do to make more money than I'm making right now that is supporting the situation that I currently have, because it needs to shift and there needs to be an additional source of money coming in. And so once again, I refuse to change my priorities. I'm not going to do it. My priorities are being with my children when it's my time with them. My priorities are self-care. My priorities are doing things that offer me freedom of time, freedom of location, freedom of, just being able to do the things that I enjoy and loving what it is that I'm doing, sharing my passions and my light. I refuse to change that. So I'm holding space for the universe to show up for me. And in what capacity that's going to be, I don't know, but I am continuing to follow through on the things that I feel guided to do in shining my light and sharing my passions, which is sharing these experiences with you guys, sharing these understandings with you guys, these revelations with you guys as I move through them. Also, just working at a deeper level to really help you guys facilitate some of these shifts. My goal is to help others facilitate these shifts, to find their inner phoenix and release it, not just at the cognitive level, but really diving in and doing that healing for those that desire it and are ready for it. And so I had posted on Facebook and I believe on Instagram also, to see if anyone felt guided toward me doing an online version of the healing workshop that really works through our energetic centers to help really just do some deep balancing on whatever's ready to be shifted in these areas for each individual. And I didn't get a lot of feedback on it, which is perfectly fine. I was just putting out feelers because this work it's really deep, and it's really either you're called to it or you're not. You're not going to be called to it till you're ready for it. So I am perfectly fine that nobody responded to that. But what I do think that I'm going to do is go ahead and create the series and put it on YouTube. And so what I will end up doing is I can't do it through a podcast because there are going to be movements and things along those lines that are going to need to be seen visually as an example for those who are following along doing the work. And so I'm going to be creating a podcast and a YouTube video where I will do one as an overall discussion of what it is that we're going to be doing and diving into, so that you can get an overall kind of understanding of what it is that we're going to be doing. And then I'm going to do a series of 7 videos where I'm going to dive into each one of the energy centers in our body, and we're going to work through different just different ways of diving into the specifics of those energies and balancing some of those things out. And this will be something that you can literally you can jump into wherever you're feeling most guided to. You can go through the whole thing. You can come back. You can go through the whole thing, and then you can come back when you're ready for your next shifts and dive in again. You can dive into individual parts of it, and you'll be able to come back and dive into it again. This is something that it will always, as you move through, it will always release and clear and create shifts and heal at whatever the next layer is for you. It will always go into whatever the next layer is for you. And so as you dive deeper, as you're ready to dive deeper, and as you feel called to different parts of it, you'll be able to dive into those different parts of it. And you'll be able to come back to them and continue that spiral as you move through. And so what I will probably do to begin with is create a couple of free videos so that you can get a little bit of an understanding of what it is and get some results that way. And then the rest of it will be premium content that will require payment. And the reason for that is because this work is not for those who are not dedicated to themselves. And that's why I don't advertise, because this work is so personal and you really have to be dedicated to making the effort to do it. And let me tell you, I may not always have the funds at this point in my life to dive into all of some of the really huge things that seem kind of interesting for me to dive into, but the things that are deep in my heart or womb for me to figure out, I figure it out financially. When you are ready to do the work, when you're ready to make a commitment to yourself, you figure it out. And it does an incredible disservice to people. It would be an incredible disservice, and it has been in the past an incredible disservice to people when I offer content for free, because it automatically, you do not show up as fully when you're not invested. We simply don't. And helping people find that phoenix within, that power, that guiding people to that. This is my heart work. This is my soul work. This is my purpose here. And it's too valuable to, this is our soul expression. This is why we're here on this earth, right? And it is too valuable to me to in any way create that kind of disservice to others. It's just, I have no desire to work with people who are not ready to show up for themselves and make a commitment and make it work, make it happen. I have no desire to work with any individuals who are not committed to themselves. And so again, that's why I don't advertise, and that's why I'm not going to offer all of this for free. The reason that I have no problem discussing so many of these things on my podcast for absolutely free is because at the cognitive level, you can make so many powerful shifts. And again, I've gone into this in some of my in one of my podcasts. At the cognitive level, you can make shifts, but that really, I can't tell you how many people I've seen in this realm who are healers, who do one kind of work and focus only on that one kind of work, and they struggle with some of those deeper wounds that continue to come up at the same rate every year. And it's the same thing that they're still dealing with, because there's no one thing that is going to get to all of this. We absolutely have to be dedicated to the process and to exploring all of the things that resonate with us, and really dedicating ourselves to those things that resonate with us, dedicating ourselves to the work if we really want to be able to really dive into this and free that phoenix. And for some people it doesn't call to them, and that's perfectly fine. And for those that it does, for those who are on this journey with me, that's who I'm here for. So anyways, that's what I've got going on. That's what I've been going through. This is some of the ways that the Mercury retrograde has affected me. This has been, just kind of an explanation of where I've gone in my kind of lover archetype and my queen archetype as well, in a lot of ways. So just wanted to share all of that with you guys, and I hope that this is useful to you in some way. And I really look forward to diving into creating this content for this workshop. I think it's going to be really amazing. So thanks guys so much. Until next time.